So in my personal opinion, anyone paying $1,000 to pick up Kashtira right now is a clown. If I wanted to scoop to Nibiru, I would pay a lot less money for my deck. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we had a ban list, or I guess yesterday at the time I'm posting this, which I'm sure you guys have seen by now, but I'll go ahead and throw it up there really quick so you guys can check it out. But in this video I want to talk about how the ban list affects the meta, and then I want to take it a step further and talk about how the ban list affects rogue deck strategies, which is a majority of the player base, I feel. Most of you guys are not playing the top tier stuff. There's going to be a whole meta shift, I think, after this ban list, and it's going to affect on how you deck build, what decks are going to have advantages that didn't have advantages last format. So let's go ahead and talk about the ban list. First off, let's just go through it really quick. We have banned, we have Artifact Scythe, Barrier Statue, the Stormwinds, Tearlaments Kit, and Sprite Elf. And then limited, we have the Ishizu cards and the 3 tier names. And then unlimited, we have Destrudo, Jet Synchron, Olion, Servant of Endymion, and Spiral Last Resort. So the major takeaways from this list: Floowandereeze, Spright, and Tear are going to be less prominent in the meta. How much less prominent? I don't know. So let's start with Floowandereeze. I think Floowandereeze is going to be like a tier 2 okay deck. They can still put out MPen, and Floowandereeze is really going to thrive in formats where link monsters are dominant. Unfortunately, what's expected to be the most represented deck, which is Kashtira, does not link summon. They can summon their Xyzes in defense mode. They can deal with the MPens quite easily. So I think for now, Floowandereeze is not going to be too popular. Next is Spright. So Spright is the one out of the 3 decks that I don't know what the future is going to look like. I don't really know how Spright can play without Elf that well. Is Runick Spright back in as like the best chance? Is some other form of Spright, maybe Tri-Brigade Spright, but I think they needed Elf pretty bad too. So yeah, I'm not sure what the future of Spright is, but for now we're gonna kind of put them aside, because I think Spright is more so now just an engine, a level 2 engine that can put out a couple negates. It's not really like a whole strategy you have to build around. We don't have to worry about gigantic Spright as much anymore, locking you out of higher than level 2 summons. So I think that's going to be okay. And then Tearlament. Okay, so Tearlament, people look at this list and see they have 8 cards of Tear are hit. Tear, I feel like, is still going to be like a tier 1 to tier 1.5 deck. And let me tell you why. There's a lot of now room for just alternate forms of activating your names. They can play the Kashtira field spell to search Kashtira, Tearlament. They can still mill using cards like Foolish Burial. They still have 3 copies of Planet, which are really good. Planet is still awesome. I don't think Tear is dead yet. And if you guys don't know, in the OCG, Tearlament is hit in a very similar way as it is here, and they are still the #1 represented deck in the meta. And then I feel there's a 4th deck that is significantly affected by this ban list, and it has none of its cards hit, and that deck is Kashtira. I think Kashtira is in a bit of a worse spot now after this ban list than they were before, and let me tell you why. So pretty much before, everybody had to play cards to counter Tear. They had to play Bystials if they wanted to have any chance. Bystials are dead against Kashtira, so Kashtira players were playing against hands with like 1 to 2 dead cards in them in the Bystials. Like, they have no use for that whatsoever. Now people can play cards specifically to hit Kashtira. They expect Kashtira to be the best deck. They expect Kashtira to need the most attention when it comes to going second cards and all that. And it's kind of like Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine decks could never be the best deck, because if it was, everyone would just play like tons of spell trap removal. Well, Kashtira is a lot of the same. People hate Kashtira similarly to how they hate Mystic Mine, playing against it. And therefore they're going to load their decks with Nibiru, with Book of Eclipse, and all that. And pretty much The reason why Kashtira is weak is because it actually just loses to any single one of those cards. Whereas Tearlament did not lose to a single Bestial. You would have to have 2 to 3 to 4 hand traps to, you know, stop a tier player from making a decent board. Kashtira, you just need one card, dude. You just need one card and they pretty much scoop. So in my personal opinion, anyone paying $1,000 to pick up Kashtira right now is a clown. Because they're just going to scoop to Nibiru. If I wanted to scoop to Nibiru, I would pay a lot less money for my deck. So yeah, keep that in mind. I don't think Kashtira is going to be everything people are gonna, you know, are hyping it up to be. I think Tearlament is really solid still. And I think that's how the top tables are gonna shape up with regards to those 4 decks at least. Now let's talk about how all of that affects rogue strategies, affects everything under tier 1. I think there's going to be a significant shakeup, and pretty much has to do a lot with what I just talked about. People are going to be removing Bestials from their main deck and putting them in the side. And people are going to be maining Nibiru. They're going to be maining Lava Golem in Sphere mode if your deck allows it. You're going to be maining stuff like Book of Eclipse. So, what does that mean for your decks? Well, if you were playing a light or a dark strategy, and you were severely hindered by Bestials, your deck is now back in business. You're not going to be facing Bestials game 1 nearly as often. If you were playing an attribute deck, your deck is a little bit worse now. Because before, you were playing against an opponent that probably had 1 to 2 Bestials in their hand, and therefore were playing like down 2 cards. They're no longer going to be playing down 2 cards. So whatever success you might have had with like Madolche, or, you know, Niteria Ishizu, or, I don't know, Speedroid, you are probably going to have a little bit of a tougher time because your opponent is going to have 5 cards to stop you instead of 3 or 4. The next thing I want to talk about is Nibiru. So you can pretty much expect Nibiru in everyone's main decks once again. So if you were playing a deck that loses to Nib, or is severely hindered by it, or cannot put up a Nibiru negate, then you are going to be in some trouble. That means Adventure Package is going to get more popular. If Adventure gets popular, we might see more Ghost Ogre back again. Yeah, if you are playing like a trap deck, like Labyrinth or Eldritch, those are a little bit more relevant now because you don't care about Nib. So now Nib is the dead card in your opponent's hand. You're not hindered by Bestials anymore again. So there's a whole kind of like shake up of the rogue meta that's about to happen. And then there's one more deck that I want to talk about that I think might bump up to one of the top tiers that you need to be prepared for, and that's Runick. So Runick was only unplayable because the Ishizu cards would just shuffle back in your spells before you could draw 3. And now that the Ishizu cards are out, I think Runick is going to be back in, so you have to be aware of building your rogue decks with a lot of fragile 1-ofs that are needed because they can easily get banished off of Runick spells. You should definitely be side decking Cosmic Cyclones to prepare for the Runick matchup. I think Evenly Matched is going to be a staple in side decks because it hits Kashtira, it hits trap decks like Labyrinth, and it's pretty solid now against I think tier is gonna, you know, Evenly it has always been like decent against tier, and I think with a weaker tier board, less likely to search crime probably, you are going to be able to nib them more evenly them more effectively, and also nib them more effectively. Nib is going to be solid against tier because they are far less consistently going to be able to put up Rukalos, because in order to do that you need to like spend a bunch of resources sending King of the Swamp to the graveyard and then sending a name to fusion summon with King of the Swamp, and I think all that's going to take more than 5 summons, so chances are you can nib against tier effectively and not get too punished by the names. Another deck that I think is going to rise up possibly in popularity and power solely due to the decreased amount of Bestials in the main deck is going to be Branded. So I think Branded is going to be a serious issue, you know, especially if you can't just Bestial away the Albaz on the fusion summon. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for Branded. You're going to want to play stuff like D barrier in the side. D barrier hits branded, it hits Kashtira, so I think that's going to be a really solid side deck staple. Branded in red could come back for branded along with Guardian Chimera, just because you're much less likely to get your target hit by a Bastille as well. So definitely consider that as an option. At the moment, I think for next format, my goals are going to be I'll be playing Plunder Patrol, I'll be playing Scareclaw, and I think I might bust out the Sky Striker once again. Because I expect far fewer Bastilles running around, so I might be able to dust that off. Striker is always at least a little bit relevant in the format, so we can always give it a go and see what happens. I'm waiting for the YCSs. There's 3 YCSs in the next 2 weeks, and I think only one of them is on the new ban list, so I'll be very interested to see how that meta shapes up. How many people are playing Bastilles, how many people are playing Tearlament, and all that. I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about the ban list so far. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you want to see some deck profiles for the new format, which is coming out on February 13th, I believe, Monday. Yeah, leave a like, leave a comment. What decks do you think are going to rise up to tier 1? Leave a comment also where you think Tearlament will end up in the tier list. So with that, I will catch you guys in the next one, and we will see you later. Hope you enjoyed the new format.